Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from Notion Hub and this is the camera review of Redmi Note 12 Pro. This phone comes with a triple camera setup on the rear with a 50 megapixel primary camera with Sony IMX766 sensor with optical image stabilization. That's followed by an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. For selfies, we get a 16 megapixel camera with f2.5 aperture. Now this is how the camera user interface looks like. It is pretty similar to other phones in the same brand. Now these are some sample shots. First I'll start off with the selfies. Color reproduction is pretty good and the colors look close to reality. Skin tones are a bit whitened or brightened, making you look much more fairer. Dynamic range and exposure control are pretty good. Now these are some portrait selfies. Edge detection is pretty good. Color reproduction and skin tones look pretty good. Now these are some selfies taken in low lighting conditions. Colors look decent as these selfies are taken in low lighting conditions. They're not too sharp and you can find greens, but that's to be expected. Now these are some selfies taken with the night mode. Selfies with night mode look good, images are sharper and brighter. Now this is a sample footage from the front facing camera. So guys, this is the sample footage recorded using the front-facing camera of Redmi Note 12 Pro. Audio is from the phone itself, so check out the noise cancellation and stabilization as well. By the way, I am currently recording this video at 1080p resolution at 30 fps. We can also record at 60 fps using the front-facing camera, but here's just at 30 fps. Initial impressions, dynamic range looks pretty good and stabilization is also pretty good. So you tell me how the footage looks. By the way, my skin is a bit more exposed. It has been softened. So that's the most noticeable thing that I can see right out of the box. Now these are some sample shots from the rear camera. These pictures have good exposure control and good dynamic range. Colors look vivid and they are great to look at. As for the color temperature, it is slightly to the cooler side. Now these are some pictures taken with the wide angle camera. Exposure control and dynamic range are pretty good. Color reproduction is good and the colors are close to reality. As for the color temperature, it is slightly on the cooler side. Now these are some macro shots. They look nice, but the colors look a bit faded. Now these are some portrait shots. Edge detection is pretty good, dynamic range and exposure control are pretty well managed, sharpness is also pretty good, color reproduction is good and the colors look pretty close to reality. Now even though this phone has a dedicated 50 megapixel camera, whenever you take a picture in the auto mode, that picture is automatically compressed using pixel binning. So for some reason if you want to take a bigger 50 megapixel picture, you can use this dedicated 50 MP mode. Pictures taken in this mode are usually bigger in size, have a lot more resolution and also carry a lot more details. These are some sample shots. Now these are some pictures taken in low lighting conditions. In low lighting conditions, this phone does a pretty good job. Images are slightly on the softer side, that's to be expected, but the color reproduction and the sharpness looks pretty decent. As for the colors, they are slightly to the cooler side. Now these are some pictures taken in low lighting conditions with the night mode. Overall images taken with the night mode look much brighter and sharper than the regular auto mode. Next, we also have light trails. In this mode, we have some extra options for long exposure and more. You can just try it for yourself and get the best results. Now for the video department, this is a sample footage recorded in 1080p resolution at 30 fps. This one offers stabilization and it looks pretty good. Exposure control and dynamic range are decent. Color reproduction is pretty good and the colors are close to accurate colors. Now this is a sample footage recorded using the wide angle camera. This phone also offers stabilization with the wide angle camera, so the footage looks pretty good. Exposure control and dynamic range are good. Color reproduction is pretty good and the colors are pretty accurate. Next, we can also record video in 4K resolution. Footage is a bit shaky, but exposure control, dynamic range are good. Color reproduction is also pretty good. If you can hold your phone steady, you can produce decent footage. Next, just like any other phone out there, we can also record video in slow motion on this phone. At 1080p resolution, we can record up to 120 fps. In 720p resolution, we can record up to 960 fps. So guys, what do you think about the camera performance of this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video. With that said, this is Nikhil signing off. See you in my next video.